welcome to the Fancy a Brew podcast. I'm Andy the Northern Diver. In this series I'll be discussing adventure, conservation and progression in scuba diving with some really interesting and inspirational divers that you might or not have heard of. The podcast is supported by Northern Diver International and you the listener through Patreon. So grab yourself a brew and enjoy this week's episode. Right then, so Caroline Robertson-Brown, welcome to Fancy a Brew podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
So if you want to give us a little bit of an intro to who you are, without giving too much away, because obviously I don't want to give all the spoilers away, otherwise it'll be a 5-minute episode, and then we'll see how we get on.
Okay, well, I'm Caroline Robertson-Brown. I'm a biologist by university training, an environmental consultant as my sort of proper original job, but then fell in love with diving and gave all of that up to go and be a dive instructor in the Caribbean, and one thing led to another, and Nick, my husband, who's already been on your show, together we formed Frogfish Photography, an underwater photography company, and got into photojournalism, traveling the world, writing about the thing we love. And it's been a real roller coaster over the last 20 years, really.
So would you describe yourself as a photographer, journalist or diver?
Oh, I don't know. It's difficult. I would say diver. The thing I love doing is being in the water. Nick's a little bit different. He won't dive if he hasn't got his camera, whereas I would still dive if I don't have my camera, sort of thing. But on saying that, all of the diving that I do now is, with thinking about the next article in my head. So all of the diving that we do is, working towards writing a feature or a blog or doing a little video story, whatever it might be that we've been asked to do.
Right. So for those who perhaps didn't listen to episode 3 or 4, I think it was, what Nick was on, or are new to discover this podcast, tell us about Frogfish. Who are Frogfish and what do they do?
So Frogfish Photography is a company based in Manchester, just my husband and I, and we do a whole range of things from teaching people underwater photography. We've written 4 books together, so we've done some, authoring work as well. We are photojournalists, so you try and keep your hand in at everything, and we do a little bit of selling of underwater photography gear as well. So I think it's quite hard to make a living in the underwater photography world. You need to keep your hand in everything that you can, basically. So on top of that, we do talks. So we do talks at things like the dive show, but then also to photography clubs, dive clubs, even sort of old people, who are retired that go to these sort of probus and clubs like that. So we spend quite a lot of time doing that. And for our sins, we also do a lot of school talks. So we like to give back. So for free, we go in and talk to school kids about marine conservation and sharks and the work that we do. So we fill our days with all sorts.
Ace. So what kind of camera setup are you using?
So I'm using the Olympus OMD EM1 Mark II, and that's in a Nauticam housing with in-on Z240 strobes, so quite old strobes now. They might need upgrading soon. And then with that, I pretty much 99% of the time will have the 8mm lens on because I shoot wide angle mostly.
Yeah. Would you say that wide angle close up or close up wide angle? How do you say that? Or do you take more big scenic sort of pictures? Is that which is more your forte?
I like the big scenic stuff myself. I like to give the viewer of my images a real feel of what it was like to be there. And I think for that, a fisheye lens is perfect, basically, to give the scenery rather than focusing on something smaller with the close-up wide angle.
Well, what's great is that me and you have now got exactly the same setup, less our strobes.
I know.
But what isn't the same is the kind of diving we do, because you get to go to all these far-flung, beautiful, clear places in the world, whereas I go to Cape and Ray and Echidelf.
Listen, there's nothing wrong with Cape and Ray and Echidelf. It's where you learn your trade. You know, your nearest dive places are the best places to practice your underwater photography. So, you know, I've put in my years of doing Echidelf and Cape and Ray already.
I suppose, though, they don't lend themselves to 8mm fisheye lenses trying to take big scenic portraits, whereas if you throw on the 60mm...
Yeah. It is more challenging wide angle in the quarries, certainly, when the vis is down, even more so. Although this time of year you should be able to, you know, it should be clearing up and you should be able to put a wide angle lens on. But you're not wrong. I am extremely lucky in the fact that in a normal year, which obviously the last 12 months have not been, in a normal year I would probably do 8 overseas trips. Yeah, so I'm missing those a lot.
I'd say it must be a massive change to your lives to be stuck at home as much as you have been. I mean, even you used to get out one Tuesday a month to go to NUPG if you didn't get out at all, whereas now it's not happening at all, is it?
No, I know. It has been a very strange year. We've been very lucky in that what I haven't said so far is that I'm also deputy editor at Scubaverse. And we got commissioned to write a magazine about the Philippines from the Philippines Tourist Board. And so that really filled a big chunk of the first lockdown with getting that work together. And Nick and I wrote 3 of the articles in that magazine. But what was fantastic was we got to reach out to underwater photographers that we know to give them a bit of work in a time where finding work was really quite difficult. So it was a really positive start to the lockdown.
Right. Do you want to let's not go back to NUPG for now? Then let's talk about Scubaverse while you brought it up. So, is it an online magazine or is it more of a community now? Do you think?
I would say that Scubaverse is an online magazine. You know, it's got news stories going up about diving, marine conservation, video content, underwater photography content, and competitions and things every day. So, but I think on the social media side of things, you're right in that brings a community of divers together who then discuss, you know, the different news articles that we're putting up. Scubaverse Media, though, the whole package also has a printed magazine called Dive Travel Adventures. And that's why Nick and I travel so much, is that we're writing for that print magazine as well as doing blogs for the website. And in lockdown, we've also expanded now and we've launched 2 new websites, Worldwide Snorkel Adventures and Caribbean Dive Adventures. So the snorkel site, we just felt that there were a lot of people out there that love the sea and, you know, and love getting in the sea, but don't necessarily want to scuba dive. And we had an amazing time in Scotland snorkeling up there. And so, you know, that really inspired us to start thinking, well, we don't always have to lug all of that kit around. And sometimes it might just be simpler to stick a wetsuit, mask and fins on, grab the cameras and go in like that. So
yeah, if only diving was as easy as snorkeling, it'd be fantastic, wouldn't it?
Exactly. And I know you covered in Nick's podcast, you know, but Nick has quite a bad neck injury. And so I do all of the lifting of his kit and my kit. And sometimes when you're doing dry suits and steel tanks and weights in the UK, you're like, oh no, let's just not bother with that and let's just try snorkeling it. So that's been quite good this year. Yeah.
Does that give him the same sort of relief?
It doesn't, no. Unfortunately, the position in the water is not great for his neck, actually, snorkeling. No. When he's down underwater, you know, the weightlessness is what really helps his neck out. So, no, we really could do a getting back into some warm water, head to the Bahamas or something.
Or run a under the bathwater competition. At least he can get in warm water for that, if nothing else.
Yeah, exactly. Not quite the same, but yeah.
So, something that it's only come to me this morning. There's another podcast. There's loads of people started podcasts last year.
Yes.
And there's another one, and I'm trying to think where it's run now. I'm going to say Canada. It's somewhere in the Northern American part of the world. And I see they were running a massive competition. They were coming up to the 50th episode, and it's for the new year, I think. They were running a massive competition, as in what you can win was quite expensive, you know, some shearwater kit. And I often wonder, because I didn't want to go down that route of running competitions, although I have now. because it does help bring in quite
It does, yeah.
a good customer base and a loyalty as well from your customers. How do you approach competitions with regards Scubaverse, as in getting people to contribute prizes? Because some of the giveaways are pretty good, aren't they? What you can win. You're talking hundreds, not just tens of pounds, hundreds of pounds.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. We're very lucky in, Scubaverse has been going, a decade now. Yeah, about a decade. And so obviously, we have had a really good opportunity to make customers, realize that lots of people visit the site. The competitions are really popular, but there are two different competitions. So let's look at the underwater photography and video competitions first. So they're monthly, and the prizes each month are going to be changing this year. Actually, we're just looking into that at the moment. But the prizes on winning the monthly competition are not huge. But then those 12 winners at the end of the year, we're just about to judge the overall winners for 2020. They're getting £1,000 worth of Mares or Scuba Pro, depending on whether it's photo or video gear. A full set of gear, basically, regs, BCD, wetsuit, the works, computer. It's an amazing prize. And Mares and Scuba Pro have been sponsoring those competitions for years now, which is fantastic. But then on the other side of things, each week there's a gear competition. So every Friday, a new bit of kit goes up. And, it could be anything from a reel, to a dive computer. You just have to look each week to see. But people are really generous giving prizes.
Sorry, what I like about them competitions is that you're forcing the reader to be in and interact with that magazine rather than just put your name here and press send and you can win. You actually want your readers or the people that are interacting with these competitions to be part of that magazine, and you have to read the story that perhaps goes behind it. And you give a cheeky clue, it's on line 5 of page 10. But equally, we'll go to that and we'll have a read through because you might find the answer.
Absolutely. So and it might be a story that you missed and you go, oh, I'm really pleased that actually this link took me to this story, which is great as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So with regards to the writers of your articles, do you have a set of staff that are in-house, or do you freelance quite a lot? How does that work?
So Scubaverse have a number of in-house writers. So Jeff Goodman is a videographer, an absolutely fantastic videographer. So he does a load of our kit reviews because he puts the full face mask on. He's able to talk and review equipment underwater, which is amazing. Yeah. And then obviously he travels and does videos on the locations that he goes to. And then Nick and I tend to do more the photography side of things, although we always do take video cameras with us just in case, there's something that will look really good on video. But that writing wise, that's it. But then we have editorial staff as well. So Dave owns the business. Jane is the editor, and she spends a lot of time sourcing new content and new bloggers and, getting people to send in, both news stories and interesting articles for the website. We have, as is always the way, we have writers that we will reach out to first, top of the list sort of thing that, when we want something specific. And other times it's just people that send in stuff and we're like, oh, that's fantastic. But it's a mixture.
Mm. What about Dive Travel Adventures then? What more can you tell me about that? Because I was away in, where was I? I was diving at Vobster a couple of weeks ago on my rebreather course. And the hotel that I was staying in, there was a copy of Dive Travel Adventures there. And I'm like, what's that doing there? Unless somebody's, left it on purpose, I don't know. So is it something you can get in the shops or how does that work?
Yeah, so Dive Travel Adventures is printed quarterly. Although I have to say this year has been unusual with dive centres being shut. We have no dive shows. We haven't printed as many as we normally would, but normally it would be quarterly. And it goes out to dive centres and is free. So, we send out to dive centres all around the UK. We take it to the dive shows ourselves. And then there are some companies, for example, like Fourth Element, that send it out with the gear that they're sending out to people as well. So it's a mixture of ways that it gets out to divers. But we print 10,000 copies each quarter, and they all get taken up. We never get any back. So yeah.
Happy days. I mean, I've seen some cracking photographs in there, which then obviously leads me on to how we initially met, which was through the NUPG, the Northern Underwater Photography Group. And for the few talks that I managed to come to before we got locked down, and then the one I've managed to make as a Zoom call after that, they've been so informative, not only because of the competitions, but the people that come in and talk. And, you know, how much work goes behind the scenes into that?
It can be a fair amount of work, actually. You know, you think you've got it all sorted, and then suddenly the months just disappear, and you're like, oh my goodness, we need to start getting speakers again organised. So we try and keep on top of things. But we've been involved now for, I don't know, about 15 years. And we first got involved in NUPG, we heard about it. For those that don't know, NUPG stands for Northern Underwater Photography Group. When we were just getting into underwater photography, so like yourself, but 15 years ago, we ventured into a meeting, didn't know anyone there. And the people were just so friendly and so helpful. They would just give you all of the knowledge that they had, you know, without wanting anything in return. It's a really open, lovely club. And then it was costing the NUPG a lot of money for a venue every month, and they were wondering whether it was worth carrying on. And so Nick and I offered our dive shop space to run the meetings for free. And then when we closed the dive shop down, we spoke to our favourite curry house and persuaded them to give their upstairs room for free, on the understanding that it was a Monday night and they were going to get a load of people in to eat a curry before the meeting. You know, it was good business for them too. And we've been going ever since, and obviously now I've been on the board for the last 10 years, I think. But you're right, it's not just the speakers, the people that attend as well. You can learn so much from your local underwater photography club. I have to say, I miss the meetings in person. I like a Zoom meeting, but I miss that, I just wanted to ask you about this sort of feel, which is hard to do on the Zoom meetings. Because
it's quite impersonal, isn't it? Because you've got 10 people or so up there, and two of you are having a conversation. You can't really talk over the other two.
Exactly. You can't just go and sit next to someone and say, right, you know, I want to talk to you about this. So I look forward to being able to go back to the in-person meetings. But we get amazing speakers who give up their time for free, you know, to come and speak at these events and share their underwater photography knowledge. And, you know, obviously now that it's online, it doesn't matter where you live, you can, you know, join and listen to them. And at the moment we're offering them for free as well. So we've stopped membership fees and just let people listen to the meetings wherever they are. Wow. But you know, for all of your viewers that live in different parts of the country, you know, there's one in Bristol, there's Bee Soup in London, there's a Scottish one. I don't know whether that's still, you know, sort of functioning, you know, monthly, but it's definitely worth seeking out your local underwater photography club, because it's where you learn so much by just speaking to other underwater photographers.
The competition's always been troublesome for me because I'm so new, so I'm not going to place, or rarely place anyway. But I can then see where I've gone wrong and perhaps discuss, not necessarily gone wrong, but to people's tastes, what I think I might do might be glorious. But then someone will pull something else out of the bag and I'll be like, I never thought of that. Or then you ask the question, how do you do that technique? And so for me, whether you win or lose, you've still won, because entering, people appreciate what you've tried and can give you pointers.
I think the competitions are really good fun because the themes come up, and some of them can be really wacky at the NUPG, I have to say. But it makes you look through your catalogue of images. Now, for you, your catalogue of images isn't that huge yet because you've only just started out on this journey. But for someone like me, it makes me go back and look at images that I might have taken 10 years ago and go, oh, have I got something that, because as you know, I mostly shoot wide angle, and then the competition themes are macro. I'm like, oh, I need to find something.
Yeah.
So it's really nice because you look back through images that you haven't seen in ages. So that aspect of it's really nice. But then, as you say, you get to look at what other people's thoughts were on that topic and go, oh, that's much better than what I did. I can copy that. And there's nothing wrong with saying, I'm going to copy what they did, because that's how you learn, is by seeing other people's work and going, I'll put my own little slant on that, but I'm going to give that a whirl myself, be it at Cape and Ray or in the Bahamas.
I think the hardest bit I found with using my computer, I nearly said then, with using my camera on full manual, is remembering the relationship in that light triangle.
Yeah.
And knowing which change will affect a different part of that photograph. And because I'm not using my camera even weekly at the minute, in the water that is, it's all well and good using it in my garden, but it's not exactly the same. The light's totally different, the stuff in between the lens and the subject. So I'm like, I need a full-time job doing it. I'm not asking for one. I'm just saying, practically, practically, I need that experience to be built up with repetition, don't I?
Yeah. And that's the same with everyone starting out. You start moving your controls and going, oh, that's not the one I meant to move. And, and if it's a fast moving subject, then you've lost your opportunity because it's not natural instinct for you yet. No. But it will be the more and more you get in the water with your camera. And it is worth doing it on land as well. I know it's not the same, but it's that natural sort of, oh, I just need to twiddle this button. And you're not thinking, is that ISO or aperture or whatever? You just know it's the top left hand swivel that it's just automatic. Then it's like driving a car. You're not going to go, oh, I'm going to put my indicator on now. Your left hand just hits the indicator. That's that eventually you'll be like that.
Well, I can only hope. Something that does interest me, and I've never asked anyone this before, is how do you catalogue your photographs on your computer? Because I tend to put them into Lightroom, do whatever I do that I like, and then I'll pull them from that, and I've not kept the raw image. I just kept the JPEG that comes from that. Do you keep both? Or
Yes. So we shoot in RAW and JPEG. Don't have Lightroom, actually. Made a conscious decision that if we can't do the edits that we want in Photoshop Elements, which is, cheap as chips, basically, then we haven't taken the shot that we wanted. So I don't like spending time on editing. All of the images that you see of ours in magazines, none of them will have been edited for longer than 3 or 4 minutes. I won't spend more than 3 or 4 minutes editing a photo. Then it's done. If it needs more than that, I just move on to the next one. So what I do is and everyone will have a different way of doing this, but mine is just based around folder structures on the computer, and it will be by country. So then, I'll list the country, and then obviously there are places, or even Cape and Ray, that we've been to multiple times. So with Cape and Ray, I'll have, August 2020, September 2020, going back years. And then the RAW and JPEGs go in there. When I edit a photo, I just put an E at the beginning of the file name, so that I know, and then so I'll keep the original JPEG, the original RAW, and then I'll save an E underscore whatever the file name was as the edited image that I'll then use in print and things. So I think there are probably more efficient ways of doing what I do, but that's I got into this habit 20 years ago, and it's going to be impossible for me to change that now.
Yeah, it sounds very much more logical to how I do mine. Just download them, and wherever they land, I'll then try and find them later.
Yeah,
I'm probably delete all by mistake or something. Why do you shoot JPEG and RAW at the same time?
Do you know, nowadays it's probably not that important, but back in the day when I had a slow laptop and Nick had a D800, which the RAW files are absolutely vast, it used to take forever to see the images on screen. And so we just did low-res JPEGs just so that I could find, look at them really easily without having to open RAW files. Nowadays, the computers open RAW files without batting an eyelid. But back in the day, my laptop was really slow, and it was just much easier to whiz through the JPEGs and then edit the RAW files that I wanted to.
Such a good answer to a question that I didn't think would be that answer. I never understood why you would do both, but that makes absolute perfect sense.
I mean, I guess the other reason nowadays is if you want to quickly share something on social media without editing it, if you've got a low-res JPEG, you can just fire it off to Facebook or what have you, rather than having to edit a RAW file down to get it to a size that's shareable.
Under the assumption that lockdown's going to end and they're going to get on top of these inoculations, if that's the right word, what plans have you got?
We've got loads of plans because we've got loads that should have happened last year and didn't. One of the best things that happened to us last year is that we were made dive ambassadors for the Bahamas. Wow. There are only 7 in the world. Nick and I are 2 of them. And, we've been to the Bahamas several times. In fact, we got our first work as dive instructors in the Bahamas. We've been back taking groups and we've been back 4 or 5 times as journalists. So we have a real wealth of knowledge about the islands. We have a huge catalogue of images from the islands. And so the tourist board rang us and said, would you consider being dive ambassadors? And he said, you already do the job, basically, because you're always going on about how much you love the place, but we'd like to give you the official title. And the good thing that comes with being an ambassador, a dive ambassador for the Bahamas, means that they will take us out there every year. So they've said as soon as regulations allow for us to go out, they'll be taking us out there to go and visit some of the islands that we haven't done, some of the dives that I really want to do out there that we haven't managed to do yet. So that's number 1 on the overseas trips. We should have been in Belize, I don't know, last April or something like that. And that's going to be quite a big trip. We're hoping to organise a sort of festival of the ocean out there. And we wanted to do an initial recce trip to go and start talking to people out there about it. So hopefully, again, as soon as, travel's possible to Belize, we'll be going out there. We were supposed to be going to Anguilla, so hopefully we'll try and get that trip back online. And we've always been going to Australia at the end of this year. That's always been the plan. So we hope to combine going to the Ashes Test match with driving from Sydney all the way up to nearly the Great Barrier Reef, basically, and making it an epic road trip, diving all the way. So
compared to the UK, it's ridiculous. It's almost twice as far.
Yeah, it'll be, it'll take, a month, I would say, to do that trip, to, getting in some dives as well and visiting friends and what have you. Yeah.
Gleaming. So congratulations on the award of a dive ambassador for out there. I mean, I know we spoke some point last year, and I can't honestly tell you why it didn't work out that we were going to go to the Bahamas. I'm going to guess it was probably down to money, because it is quite an expensive trip.
If you want to do the shark diving, it certainly adds up. The shark diving is quite expensive,
So we looked at Mexico, and we're going to go to the cenote, dive a bit of the cenotes.
Yeah.
And then there was an area that the bull sharks were going to be quite interesting in that period, but it got cancelled because our flights had to go via from Frankfurt into the US. So that got canned. That was just before Christmas. So we've now booked, after talking to Donovan, and he'd done the white shark trip out of South Africa. We've booked that now for September this year. So
South Africa is one of my favourite places. In fact, we watched My Octopus Teacher. Have you watched that?
Yes. Wow.
Well, we hadn't watched it until a few nights ago. We've been saving it until we're really missing the ocean, and we thought, oh no, we got to watch it now. And we watched it, and it just reminded me of how wonderful the diving is in South Africa. It's a mind-blowing country. It really is. Yeah. The last time I was there was, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and we did the sardine run, and then went down to Cape Town, and I was leading a group on a whining and diving tour. So we were
Sounds horrendous.
we were doing wine tasting at loads of lovely vineyards there,
I bet.
and then we not obviously not after drinking, but we then also included in the travel itinerary some diving, and we did a seal dive off Cape Town that was just absolutely epic. And then the kelp forest that features in My Octopus Teacher, we dived there as well. Oh, it was just outstanding. And we did the sharks though up in Gansby. So
yes.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Great whites are just the most awesome thing to see underwater.
Well, it still amazes me. Now, I've not been diving forever, but the more people I talk to, such as yourself and Nick, and a few other people that are such advocates for sharks, they tell me how much safer it is than we're led to believe, and how much more thought goes into a shark than just going out kill.
Yeah.
But still, when I see the magnificence of a great white shark and someone just free diving at the side of it or whatever, I think, I don't know. I want to. I'd love to, but we'll just have to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, being outside of a cage with a great white shark is something I haven't done. I would only do it in the company of someone that really knew their stuff. I'd have to be really confident that the person knew what they were talking about before that, because with all of the other sharks, they eat fish and stingrays. And so, we do not feature on their, oh, look, that's a piece of food. So the only reason then that they're going to bite you is if you surprise them, hurt them, chase them, do something you shouldn't do. With a great white, unfortunately, they eat seals, and I don't know about you, but speaking personally, I look quite a lot like a fat seal in a wetsuit. So, I would at the surface, I would be very worried, about that. So, and it's not the great white's fault. It's just that that's what it eats. And I think I would look like the thing that it eats. So,
I never sort of put that rationale into my head that is the case, but it's absolutely true.
Yeah.
So I might be just like you now. No, until somebody will take me in, but we'll see. But
I would only do it with someone that really knew their stuff, that was an expert in great white shark behaviour. Then I'd consider it. We've done great white sharks in South Africa, South Australia, and Guadeloupe now. So we've done the sort of 3 great white shark destinations that you can do, and they're all magnificent for different reasons. But my favourite country to do it in is South Africa.
I spoke to a few people about South Africa because my assumption is there's a lot of crime, a lot of violence. One of my old bosses, he used to live there with his parents, and he was saying every night the roller shutters come down, cage goes up behind the door. But apparently that's not the case. That's just media-led, and certain areas, like everywhere in the world, there's an area that's not great.
I was going to say there are bits of Manchester that I wouldn't be comfortable walking on my own at night in, and that's not because it's a dangerous city. It's just you don't put yourself at additional risk.
No.
So I think every big city has its moments, but certainly when we were there, we'd never felt threatened in any way. We had a fantastic time.
Right.
You'll love
something
it.
I noticed early on last year, you'd started to do a bit of a litter pick on a daily basis, hadn't you? And certainly after talking to Nick, I then discovered SeaStraw and lots of different things within the conservation arena that you were big behind. So how did your litter pick go? Have you got numbers, figures?
I do. I've just worked it all out, actually. So my ambition was to do 1 a day. My ambition was to do 365 litter picks in 2020. I did 303. So I didn't quite make it, but we have a new puppy and a new foster dog in the house, and it just made it very difficult the last month and a bit, last 2 months sort of thing to do it. And you have to look after the dogs. Had to come first, basically. So I did 303 litter picks last year. Other facts and figures I can tell you that I picked up over 3,000 plastic drinks bottles. I didn't count every little thing that I picked up, but I mentally made sure that I'd picked up 10 plastic bottles each trip that I went out. So I know that I picked up 3,000 bottles. I picked up 32 golf balls, and so much PPE and sweet wrappers and elastic bands, and just at times it was a bit soul destroying, actually, because I'd be doing a similar route every day, and every day the litter would be back. And so at times you were just like, I don't really know why I'm doing this. But at other times I was more positive, and I was like, well, if I didn't pick up this 10 bottles, then there'd be 20 here tomorrow, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, but it was a bit of a challenge at times. And I had to be really careful because of COVID as well. So I had to have I had my litter picker in my right hand and my litter bag in my left hand. And I basically didn't let go of either until I got home, so that I didn't touch anything and then touch my face or anything like that. So it was quite a challenge.
We were out on our mountain bikes a couple of days ago and just going down some sort of farm tracks almost, but country roads, they were very single track. And the amount of McDonald's wrappers, but like a full bag of crap, just, it's not that hard to just leave it on your seat till you get home.
It really isn't. And the problem is that, we go into schools, and a lot of the time it's primary schools that invite us in to talk to pupils. And all of the kids are on it. And you're like, I don't know why we're here, because they're all like, never drop anything, recycle, they're really into saving the oceans. But then I don't know what happens when people get older, that then they lose that connection. In fact, SeaStraw this year are going to be very much focusing on trying to educate older people that just because you drop something in Manchester doesn't mean that it's not going to end up in the ocean. Many of our drains, if you drop something on the street, it'll wash into the drain, go straight into the River Mersey and straight out to sea. So it doesn't go through water treatment, doesn't go to some plant that takes all of this stuff out magically. Yeah. If you drop it on the street, it just goes straight into the sea. And so we're going to try and work on, reconnecting people to the ocean here in Manchester. That's the plan anyway. We're still working on it.
You must be pretty pleased, or must have been pretty pleased last year to see that all plastic straws were banned, because hadn't you worked quite hard and was it all of Manchester in a city or something changed from using them?
That's right. Yeah, we started a couple of years back, and went in bar by bar and just said, look, please, will you stop using plastic straws? Here's some alternatives, or just don't have them on the counter so that people have to ask for them, and came up with a whole load of different ideas. And that's how SeaStraw was born. In fact, my brother and I were having a pint, and the people next to us ordered cocktails or something, and they got like a plastic umbrella and a plastic straw and a plastic Twizzly stick in their drinks. And we ordered 2 pints of bitter. And we were laughing, and we were like, well, at least all our drinks won't come with all of that plastic rubbish. And the barman, one of the pints had a frothy head, and the barman picked up 2 plastic straws, swept it across the top of the glass to get rid of the additional foam, and threw the 2 straws into the bin. And at that point, my brother and I were like, yeah, we've got to do something about this. So that's how it all started. So we talked to that barman, and he went, oh, God, I've never even thought about it. And so, that's how it all started. And now it's become a bit of an addiction to try and reduce this plastic going into the ocean. So we were really pleased to see that in October, plastic straws and stirrers were banned, but there's so much more to do. We just have to keep plugging away until PPE now is, the biggest threat. So you just see so much of it.
But even the elastics on them, the way they're bonded on, they can become a hazard to wildlife, can't they, quite easily?
Absolutely. I've already seen pictures of animals stuck in those loops. No. Yeah. Seabirds, and I can't think what else. I've definitely seen birds with their feet stuck in them, So, it's going to be another campaign that, people will have to start, really thinking about this stuff again.
And it's something that I found out through running the podcast. I spoke to a woman called Autumn Blum. She's over in Florida. She runs that Stream to Sea. And I didn't realise that even the hand sanitizer that we're using now has microplastics in it quite a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And I'd bought some for in my van because we were just doing pest control as opposed to the rest of the work that we do. So I wanted to at least sanitize my hands after every job, and I could use the same stuff on my keys, my mobile phone case, and it was very much just like water. It was just like a liquid. So I asked her, I've seen other ones that are really quite jellified. I said, is the one that's better than the other? She said, yeah, the one you've got. And I'd not knowingly bought that for that reason. It was just what came.
Yeah.
She said, that one's better because it's literally neat alcohol, whereas the other one is full of all this jelly stuff and fragrances that people are used to having.
Yeah. No, I'm quite lucky because I'm allergic to all fragrances, basically. So I'm the same as you. I've got just the standard plain alcohol, which is much better for the environment. It dries your skin out a bit, but you know what? That's just something that we have to do at the moment to stay safe, isn't it? So
or wear a load more plastic, get them rubber gloves on. And then where do they go? They straight in a bin, and they're not going to break down because they're just not rubber.
No, yeah, I mean, you're much better washing your hands than using gloves. But I mean, there are some people that have to, obviously, in medical industry, professions. But I would just press to your listeners to have a look at Scubaverse.com because there's always new stuff going on there. So that would be really good. But no, I think this year we've just got to, it's that wait and see, isn't it? And until we're released from this lockdown, and hopefully the vaccine will allow us to get out and start scuba diving again.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I think it'll be about 2030 when I'm young enough or old enough to have that vaccine, because there's still so many people for it to be rolled out to, and obviously there's more people that's more likely to get damaged by the virus than I am. So.
No, I mean, you are right. It is going to be a while for you. But with all of the people that are going to get it, that will make the numbers come down. And I think the lockdown will, ease enough to let us at least go diving in this country, would be my guess. I missed the Farne Islands this year and because of having to cancel the trip because we all had shared accommodation and that wasn't allowed under the lockdown rules that we were under. So that's 2 years running. I haven't been to see my seals in the Farne Islands. So this year I'm going come hell or high water.
Sleep at the back of your car.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on, mate. It's always good to have a chat and catch up. I've not seen you face to face for, I think it was probably the first week of March. And was it Trevor Reese that came up then?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
I think that was the last time we've had a face to face there.
Yeah.
And he introduced me to the fact that you can cut like the top off a bottle and use it on your strobe, loads of black tape, and it works really well as a snood. And I was like, okay, I'll give that a go.
He's amazing, isn't he? He's these people that make their own underwater photography gear are brilliant.
Yeah, crazy guy, but in the nicest way. I mean, crazy that you can make stuff that I've never thought of, and now I have. Right then, well, have a nice rest of the day. Hope lockdown doesn't affect you too much, and you can get back to your overseas trips that I'm not jealous at all about. A nice one, and I'll no doubt see you soon enough. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah,
see you later.
Great to chat to you. Cheers.
Take it easy. Love to Nick. See you.
Will do.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks very much to this week's guest for sharing their stories and interesting tales about the underwater world. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I did recording it. For more information on this episode, take a look at the description below. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already, and follow us on Instagram for the latest news. Thanks again to Northern Diver International and those of you who have supported me through Patreon. Take care, and I'll see you on YouTube.